The woman in white walked toward a man who would destroy her, and her best friend was the only witness who saw the truth. When Claire Bennett stood in that wedding hall watching Evelyn Carter's trembling hands, she didn't know she was about to become a prisoner in the same gilded cage. She didn't know Leon Moretti's smile hid a trap. And she definitely didn't know that trying to leave would be the last free choice she'd make for years. This is a story about loyalty, survival, and the quiet courage it takes to stay when running would be easier. If you're watching, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The estate sat on a hillside like something out of a magazine, all stone and ivy and tall windows that caught the afternoon light just right. Claire Bennett stood near the edge of the garden, clutching her small purse with both hands, trying not to look as out of place as she felt. She'd known Evelyn Carter since college. They'd shared a cramped dorm room, late-night study sessions, too much cheap wine, and the kind of friendship that didn't need constant conversation to stay strong. Evelyn was bold where Claire was cautious. Evelyn laughed loud and took risks and dated men who drove fast cars. Claire preferred books, quiet evenings, and staying out of the spotlight. So when Evelyn called 6 months ago and said she was getting married, Claire had been surprised. When Evelyn said the wedding would be at a private estate in the mountains, Claire thought it sounded romantic. When Evelyn's voice cracked on the phone and she said, "I really need you there, Claire. Please." Claire booked the flight without asking questions. Now, standing in the garden surrounded by people she didn't know, Claire wished she'd asked more questions. The wedding guests were beautiful in that effortless, expensive way. Women in silk dresses that probably cost more than Claire's rent. Men in tailored suits, watches glinting in the sun. Everyone seemed to know each other. Everyone seemed comfortable. Claire smoothed down her dress, a simple navy blue thing she'd bought on sale, and tried to blend into the background. She was good at that. Blending in. Not making waves. "Claire!" She turned and saw Evelyn hurrying toward her, heels clicking on the stone path. For a second, relief washed over Claire. Evelyn looked stunning in her bridal gown, all lace and pearls and... Then Claire saw her face. Evelyn's makeup was flawless, but her eyes were red-rimmed. Her smile didn't reach anywhere near her eyes, and her hands, when she grabbed Claire's, were ice-cold despite the warm afternoon. "You came," Evelyn breathed. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come." "Of course I came. You're my best friend." Claire squeezed her hands gently. "Evelyn, are you okay?" "I'm fine." The words came out too fast. "Just nervous. You know how weddings are?" Claire didn't know how weddings were. She'd never been married, but she knew Evelyn, and this wasn't nerves. This was fear. "Who is he?" Claire asked quietly. "You never really told me much about Leon." Evelyn's jaw tightened. He's good to me. His family has money, connections. She stopped, glanced over her shoulder like she was checking if anyone was listening. "I have to go. The ceremony's starting soon, but stay close, okay? After the reception, we'll talk. Really talk." Before Claire could respond, a tall woman in black appeared at Evelyn's elbow. "The photographer is waiting," she said, not unkindly, but with the firmness of someone used to being obeyed. Evelyn gave Claire one last desperate look, then let herself be led away. Claire stood there, unease settling in her stomach like a stone. The ceremony took place in a glass-walled conservatory overlooking the valley. It should have been beautiful. The flowers were perfect. The music was soft and elegant. The guests were appropriately teary-eyed. But Claire couldn't stop watching Evelyn's hands. They shook as she held the bouquet. They shook as Leon Moretti slid the ring onto her finger. They shook as he lifted her veil and kissed her, his hand gripping the back of her neck just a little too firmly. Leon Moretti was handsome in a sharp, cold way. Dark hair slicked back. Suit that probably cost more than Claire's car. He smiled at Evelyn, but it wasn't the smile of a man in love. It was the smile of a man who'd just won something. Claire felt sick. She tried to catch Evelyn's eye during the recessional, but Evelyn kept her gaze straight ahead, her smile fixed in place like a mask. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom. Chandeliers dripped crystal. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters glided between tables with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that Claire couldn't pronounce. She found herself at a table near the back, surrounded by distant relatives of someone. She wasn't sure who. They made polite small talk. Claire smiled and nodded and sipped her champagne and kept glancing toward the head table where Evelyn sat beside Leon. Leon had his arm around Evelyn's shoulders. He was laughing with the man next to him, some older gentleman with silver hair and a hard face. Evelyn sat very still, her smile never wavering. "You're the bride's friend, aren't you?" Claire turned. A man had taken the empty seat beside her. He was younger than most of the guests, maybe early 30s, with dark eyes and an easy smile that didn't quite match the way he was studying her. "Yes," Claire said carefully. "We went to college together." "Vincent Moretti." He extended his hand. "Leon's cousin." Claire shook his hand briefly. "Claire Bennett." "So, Claire Bennett, how do you like the wedding?" "It's lovely," she lied. Vincent's smile widened. "You're a terrible liar." Claire's heart skipped. "I don't—" "Relax, I'm not offended." He leaned back in his chair, swirling his champagne. "Most people here are pretending to enjoy themselves. It's what we do. But you actually look worried. That's different." "I'm just tired from the flight," Claire said, keeping her voice neutral. Vincent didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. "Well, enjoy the party, and if you need anything, let me know. Us outsiders should stick together." He stood and walked away before Claire could ask what he meant by that. The evening dragged on. Dinner was served, toasts were made, the cake was cut. Leon and Evelyn took their first dance, and Claire watched Evelyn's face the entire time, watched the way her smile never slipped, the way her body stayed rigid in Leon's arms. By the time the dancing opened up to the guests, Claire couldn't take it anymore. She slipped out of the ballroom and went looking for Evelyn. She found her in a small sitting room off the main hallway. Evelyn was standing by the window, still in her wedding dress, staring out at the dark gardens. She didn't turn when Claire entered. "Evelyn?" "You should go back to the party," Evelyn said quietly. "People will notice." "I don't care." Claire closed the door behind her. "Talk to me. What's going on?" Evelyn's shoulders sagged. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Then she straightened, took a breath, and turned to face Claire. "My father owed money," she said flatly. "A lot of money. To the wrong people. Leon's family. When he couldn't pay, Leon offered a deal. Marriage instead of death." Claire's blood went cold. "Evelyn, no, you can't." "It's done." Evelyn's voice cracked. "It's done, Claire. I signed the papers. I said the vows. There's no way out now." "There's always a way out. We can go to the police. We can—" "The police?" Evelyn laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think the police touch Leon Moretti? His family owns half the state. Judges, politicians, cops, they're all on the payroll. There's no help coming." Claire felt the room tilt. "Then we'll leave. Tonight. I'll help you. We'll just—" "They'll kill my father." Evelyn's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "If I run, Leon will have him killed. He made that very clear." "Evelyn, go home, Claire." Evelyn's voice went soft, almost gentle. "Tomorrow morning, get on a plane and go home. Forget about this. Forget about me. I'm not leaving you. You have to." The door opened. Leon stood in the doorway, his expression pleasant, but his eyes flat and cold. "There you are, darling. Our guests are asking for you." Evelyn's entire demeanor shifted. The fear vanished, replaced by that brittle smile. "Of course, I was just saying goodbye to Claire. She's leaving soon." "Is she?" Leon's gaze slid to Claire. "That's a shame. The party's just getting started." "I should get back to my hotel," Claire said, keeping her voice steady even though her pulse was hammering. "Early flight tomorrow." "Nonsense." Leon stepped into the room. "You're Evelyn's oldest friend. You should stay the night. We have plenty of guest rooms." It wasn't an offer. It was an order. "That's very kind," Claire said carefully, "but I already have a room booked. I insist." Leon's smile didn't change. "Evelyn would never forgive me if I let you leave without proper hospitality. Isn't that right, darling?" Evelyn nodded. She wouldn't meet Claire's eyes. "It's settled then." Leon extended his arm to Evelyn. "Come. They're about to cut the second cake." Evelyn took his arm. As they walked past Claire, she whispered, "I'm sorry." Then they were gone. Claire stood alone in the sitting room, her hands shaking. She should leave. Right now. Walk out the front door, call a cab, get the hell out of this place. But Evelyn's face, the fear, the desperation, kept flashing through her mind. She couldn't just leave her. Claire didn't go back to the ballroom. Instead, she wandered the hallways, trying to orient herself. The estate was huge, all winding corridors and closed doors. She passed a few staff members, but they barely glanced at her. She was trying to find the front entrance when she turned a corner and nearly collided with Vincent Moretti. Whoa! He caught her elbow, steadying her. Careful. Sorry. Claire stepped back quickly. Vincent studied her face. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm just lost. I was trying to find the exit? Vincent's expression was unreadable. Good luck with that. Claire's stomach dropped. What? Come on. Vincent jerked his head toward a side door. Let's talk somewhere private. Every instinct told Claire to run, but Vincent was already walking away and she didn't know where else to go. She followed him. He led her to a small library lined with books that looked old and expensive. Vincent closed the door and leaned against it, arms crossed. You're wondering if you can trust me, he said. Claire said nothing. Smart. You shouldn't trust anyone in this family. But I'm going to give you some free advice anyway, because I like the way you looked at Evelyn during the ceremony, like you actually gave a damn. I do give a damn, Claire said quietly. Then listen carefully. Vincent's voice dropped. Leon didn't marry Evelyn because he loves her. He married her because her father owed him money and Leon wanted to make a point. That's how this family works. Everything's a transaction. Everyone's either an asset or a liability. Why are you telling me this? Because you're about to become a liability. Vincent pushed off the door, started pacing. Leon doesn't like loose ends, and you, Claire Bennett, are a loose end. You know too much. You care too much. And you're not part of the family. Claire's mouth went dry. I'm leaving tomorrow. No, you're not. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What are you talking about? Claire's voice came out thin. Vincent stopped pacing, looked at her directly. Leon's men are already watching you. You think you're going to walk out that front door, get in a cab, fly home? Not happening. Leon's decided you're useful. Useful how? Leverage. Vincent's jaw tightened. Against Evelyn? As long as you're here, she'll behave. She won't try to run. She won't make trouble. Because she knows if she does, you'll pay for it. Claire felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. No, that's insane. I'm nobody. You're her best friend. That makes you somebody. Vincent moved closer, his voice urgent. Listen to me. When they come for you, and they will come for you, don't fight. Don't make a scene. Just go with them. Cooperate. The more compliant you are, the better they'll treat you. You're telling me to just let them kidnap me? I'm telling you how to survive. Claire's breath came short and fast. This couldn't be happening. This was supposed to be a wedding, a weekend trip. She was supposed to be home by Monday, back at her quiet job, her quiet life. I have to warn someone, she whispered. I have to. Who? Vincent's laugh was harsh. The staff? They work for Leon. The other guests? They're either family or too scared to cross the family. The police? Bought and paid for. He stepped back, shook his head. There's no cavalry coming, Claire. There's just you, and the choice of how you handle what comes next. Before Claire could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Vincent grabbed her arm. Remember what I said. Don't fight. Then he was gone, slipping out a side door she hadn't noticed, leaving Claire alone. The library door opened. Two men stepped inside. They were both large, both wearing suits that didn't quite hide the bulk of weapons underneath. One of them smiled at her. It wasn't a nice smile. Ms. Bennett, he said, Mr. Moretti would like to see you. Claire's hands balled into fists. I was just heading back to the party. That won't be necessary. The man stepped aside, gesturing to the hallway. Please, this way. Every muscle in Claire's body screamed at her to run. But there was nowhere to run to. She thought of Evelyn, thought of Vincent's warning, and she walked forward. They didn't take her back to the ballroom. They led her deeper into the estate, down a hallway she hadn't seen before, to a heavy wooden door at the end. One of the men knocked twice. "Come in," Leon's voice. The door opened. The room beyond was an office, all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with books and expensive bottles of liquor. Leon sat behind a massive desk, his jacket off, tie loosened. He looked relaxed, comfortable. "Claire." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." Claire didn't move. "What's going on?" "Sit down." It wasn't a request. Sat. Leon poured himself a drink, didn't offer her one. "You and Evelyn are close, I understand." "We're friends. Best friends, from what I hear." Leon took a sip, studied her over the rim of his glass. "She trusts you." Claire said nothing. "That's valuable," Leon continued. "Trust, loyalty. Evelyn doesn't have much of that left in her life. Just you, really. If you hurt her..." "Hurt her?" Leon's eyebrows rose. "I just married her. Why would I hurt my wife?" "Then let me leave." "I can't do that." The casual way he said it made Claire's skin crawl. "You can't keep me here," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "People know I'm here. My job, my family. They'll notice if I don't come back." "Will they?" Leon leaned back in his chair. "You live alone. You work a quiet office job where you barely speak to your coworkers. Your parents are dead. No siblings, no boyfriend." He smiled at her expression. "I do my research, Claire. You're a ghost. No one will miss you." The room felt very small suddenly. "What do you want from me?" Claire whispered. "I want you to stay. Be Evelyn's friend. Keep her company. Help her adjust to her new life." Leon set down his glass. "And in return, I'll make sure you're comfortable. Nice room, good food, anything you need. All you have to do is behave. And if I don't?" Leon's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Then Evelyn suffers, and you suffer, and everyone loses." He stood, buttoned his jacket. "But you're a smart woman. You'll make the right choice." He walked past her, paused at the door. "One of the men will show you to your room. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll discuss the rules in more detail." Then he was gone. Claire sat frozen in the chair, her mind racing. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen. Not to people like her. Not in real life. But the locked door, the men waiting outside, Evelyn's terrified face. It was all real. She was a prisoner. The room they gave her was beautiful, in a suffocating kind of way. Big four-poster bed, thick carpet, windows that overlooked the gardens. It would have been lovely if the windows weren't locked, if there wasn't a guard outside the door. Claire stood in the middle of the room, still in her navy dress, and tried not to panic. She had to think, had to find a way out. But every plan that formed in her mind crumbled under scrutiny. She didn't know the estate layout, didn't know how many guards there were, didn't have a phone. They'd taken her purse when she entered the room. She was alone, completely alone. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Come in," she said, because what else could she say? The door opened. Evelyn slipped inside, still in her wedding dress, and locked the door behind her. "I only have a minute," she said quickly. "Leon's downstairs with his cousins, but he'll notice if I'm gone too long." "Evelyn," Claire crossed to her, grabbed her hands. "We have to get out of here, both of us. Right now." "We can't." "Yes, we can. There has to be a way." "There isn't." Evelyn's voice broke. "I tried, Claire. Before the wedding, I tried to run. They caught me in less than an hour, brought me back, made me watch while they..." She stopped, swallowed hard. "They hurt people I care about to teach me a lesson. I can't go through that again." "Then what do we do?" Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "We survive. That's all we can do. We survive. And we wait. And maybe someday..." She shook her head. "I'm so sorry. I never should have asked you to come. I just wanted to see you one more time before..." Her voice failed. Claire pulled her into a hug. Evelyn collapsed against her, sobbing silently into her shoulder. "We'll figure it out," Claire whispered, even though she had no idea how. "We'll find a way. I promise." Evelyn pulled back, wiped her eyes. "I have to go. If Leon finds out I came here, go. It's okay." Evelyn hesitated at the door. "There are good days and bad days here. On the good days, they mostly leave you alone. On the bad days, she trailed off. Just do what they say, Claire, please. Don't be brave. Don't be a hero. Just survive. Then she was gone. Claire stood in the silent room, her heart hammering. Survive. That was all she had now. No rescue, no escape, just survival. She walked to the window, pressed her hand against the glass. Outside, the gardens were dark, the mountains black shapes against the night sky. Somewhere down in the valley, there were roads, towns, normal people living normal lives. It might as well have been another planet. Claire closed her eyes, took a shaky breath. She thought of her apartment, her books, her job, her quiet, predictable life. She'd give anything to have it back. But that life was gone now, taken, stolen by a man who saw people as assets and leverage, who collected lives the way some men collected art. A new thought occurred to her, sharp and bitter. Leon had said he did his research. He knew she was alone, knew no one would come looking. He'd chosen her specifically because she was easy to erase, the shy, quiet girl who never made waves, who never drew attention, who spent her whole life trying not to be noticed. And now she'd disappeared, and the world would keep spinning without her. Claire opened her eyes. Fine. If Leon thought she was weak because she was quiet, he was wrong. If he thought she'd break because she was scared, he was wrong. She didn't know how yet, didn't have a plan. But someday, somehow, she was going to find a way out of this, for herself, for Evelyn. She just had to survive long enough to see it. Basab. Morning came too soon. Claire hadn't slept. She'd spent the night pacing, thinking, discarding plans, then pacing some more. When pale light finally crept through the windows, she felt hollowed out, exhausted. A knock at the door. Miss Bennett? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. Breakfast is ready. Please dress and come downstairs. Claire looked down at herself. She was still wearing yesterday's dress, now wrinkled and uncomfortable. I don't have any other clothes, she called back. Check the closet. Claire opened the closet door. Inside, she found a row of dresses, blouses, slacks, all in her size, all tasteful, expensive, nothing she could ever afford. Her stomach turned. They'd planned this, prepared for her. She picked a simple gray dress and white cardigan, changed quickly, then opened the door. The woman waiting outside was older, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. I'm Mrs. Kovac. I manage the household staff. This way, please. She led Claire downstairs to a sunlit breakfast room. Leon sat at the head of the table, reading a newspaper. He looked up when they entered, smiled. Good morning, Claire. I trust you slept well? Claire didn't answer. Leon's smile thinned. Sit, eat. We have much to discuss. Claire sat at the far end of the table. Mrs. Kovac brought coffee, pastries, fruit. Claire's stomach growled despite her nerves. She hadn't eaten since yesterday's reception. She picked at a croissant while Leon watched her. The rules are simple, he said finally. You're a guest here, but a supervised one. You may move freely within the estate, but not leave the grounds. You'll attend family meals when requested. You'll keep Evelyn company. You'll make no attempt to contact the outside world. And if I refuse, then privileges are removed. Your room becomes smaller. Your movements become more restricted, and Evelyn pays for your disobedience. Leon folded his newspaper. But you won't refuse, because you're smart, and because you care about your friend. Claire set down her croissant. How long? How long what? How long do you plan to keep me here? Leon considered. That depends on you. Cooperate, and life will be comfortable. Resist, and it becomes significantly less so. But in terms of leaving? He shrugged. I haven't decided yet. The casual cruelty of it took Claire's breath away. You can't do this, she said, voice shaking. This is insane. You can't just kidnap people. I can do whatever I want, Claire. Leon's voice went cold. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. He stood, adjusted his cufflinks. Evelyn will join you for lunch. Until then, feel free to explore. Get familiar with your new home. Then he walked out, leaving Claire alone with her coffee and the wreckage of her old life. The days blurred together. Claire learned the rhythms of the estate. Breakfast alone or with Leon. Lunch with Evelyn when she was allowed. Dinner with the family, Leon's cousins, his uncle, various associates who came and went. She learned to sit quietly, speak when spoken to, make herself small. It was survival. Evelyn had been right. Some days were better than others. On good days, they were mostly left alone. On bad days, Leon's temper flared and everyone walked on eggshells. Claire watched, listened, learned. She learned that Vincent came by most evenings, always polite but distant. She learned that Leon's uncle, Marcello, ran the family business, whatever that business actually was. She learned that the staff knew everything and said nothing, and she learned that there was no easy way out. The estate was a fortress, guards at every exit, cameras in every hallway. Even if she somehow got past them, she was miles from the nearest town, surrounded by mountains she didn't know. But she kept watching, kept listening, because someday there would be a chance. She just had to be ready. 3 weeks after the wedding, Vincent found her in the library. Claire had taken to spending her afternoons there. It was quiet. The guards mostly left her alone, and the books were a temporary escape from the reality of her situation. "You read a lot," Vincent said, settling into the chair across from her. Claire closed her book. "Not much else to do." "You could try to escape." Claire's pulse jumped. "Is that a test?" "No, just an observation." Vincent leaned back, studying her. "Most people in your situation would have tried by now, but you're just waiting. Why?" "Because I'm smart enough to know I wouldn't make it 10 feet. Vincent's mouth twitched. "Fair." They sat in silence for a moment. "Why are you here?" Claire asked finally. "At the estate, I mean. You don't seem like you want to be." "I don't, but family is family." Vincent's expression darkened. "And this family doesn't let you leave." "Then we have that in common." Vincent laughed, sharp and bitter. "Yeah, I guess we do." He stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most would." "I don't feel like I'm handling it at all." That's the thing about survival. You don't realize you're doing it until you look back and see how far you've come. Vincent headed for the door, then stopped. "There's a groundskeeper who leaves the south gate unlocked on Thursday nights, around midnight, in case you were wondering." Claire's heart stuttered. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of watching people get crushed by this family, and because you remind me of someone I used to know, someone who deserved better." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Do with the information what you will." Then he walked out. Claire sat frozen, her book forgotten. Thursday night, Southgate, midnight. It could be a trap. Probably was a trap. But it was also the first real chance she'd had since arriving. She thought of Evelyn, of Leon's warning that any disobedience would mean Evelyn suffered, but she also thought of her old life, of freedom, of being able to walk down a street without guards watching her every move. Thursday was 2 days away. 2 days to decide if she was brave enough or stupid enough to try. Claire spent Wednesday night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to talk herself out of it. Running was stupid. Vincent's information could be a setup. Leon could be testing her loyalty, waiting to see if she'd take the bait. And even if the south gate really was unlocked, even if she made it past the guards, then what? She had no money, no phone, no idea where she was. She'd be lost in the mountains in the middle of the night, and they'd find her before sunrise. But the thought of staying here forever, of watching Evelyn fade a little more each day, of becoming another ghost in Leon's collection, that was worse than any risk. By Thursday morning, she'd made her decision. She was going to try. Breakfast was tense. Leon seemed distracted, his phone buzzing constantly with messages he'd read and then dismiss with irritation. Marcello showed up halfway through, whispered something in Leon's ear that made his jaw tighten. "Business?" Claire asked quietly, more to break the silence than out of real curiosity. Leon's eyes snapped to her. "Nothing that concerns you." "Of course not." Claire went back to her coffee. Leon stood abruptly. "I'll be in meetings all day. Don't wait up for dinner." He left without another word. Claire watched him go, her heart beating faster. If he was busy, if he was distracted, maybe tonight would actually work. She forced herself to act normal for the rest of the day. She ate lunch with Evelyn in the small sitting room overlooking the gardens. Evelyn looked tired, shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "Are you sleeping?" Claire asked. Not really. Evelyn picked at her salad. Leon's been on edge lately. Some deal went wrong. I don't know the details, but when he's like this, it's better to just stay out of his way. Has he hurt you? Evelyn's silence was answer enough. Claire reached across the table, took her hand. I'm going to get us out of here. Claire, don't. Evelyn's grip tightened. Please, I know you're thinking about it, but don't. They'll catch you. They always catch people who run. What if they don't? They will. Evelyn's voice cracked. And when they do, Leon will make an example out of you, out of both of us. I can't watch that happen. I can't. Claire wanted to tell her about Vincent's tip, about the unlocked gate, but something held her back. If this went wrong, Evelyn needed to be able to honestly say she didn't know anything. I'm just talking, Claire lied. I'm not going anywhere. Evelyn didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. That afternoon, Claire returned to her room and started preparing. She couldn't take much. Anything missing would raise suspicion. She put on layers, a tank top under her blouse, leggings under her skirt. She tucked a small bottle of water from her nightstand into her cardigan pocket. It wasn't much, but it was something. At dinner, she ate alone. The dining room felt cavernous without Leon's presence. Mrs. Kovacs served the meal in silence, her expression unreadable. Will Mr. Moretti be back tonight? Claire asked. I couldn't say, miss. Claire nodded, pushed food around her plate. When Mrs. Kovac came to clear the dishes, Claire stopped her. I'm not feeling well. I think I'll go to bed early. Mrs. Kovac's eyes narrowed slightly. Shall I call the doctor? No, just tired. It's been a long week. Very well. Mrs. Kovac collected the plates. Sleep well, miss. Claire went upstairs, closed her door, and waited. The estate settled into its nighttime routine. Footsteps in the hallways grew less frequent. Voices faded. By 11, the silence was almost complete. Claire changed into darker clothes, black pants, a navy sweater she found in the closet. She left the lights on in her room, arranged pillows under the blankets to look like a sleeping body if anyone glanced in. Then she cracked open her door and listened. Nothing. She slipped into the hallway, moving as quietly as she could. Her room was on the second floor, east wing. The south gate was on the opposite side of the estate. She'd have to cross the main floor without being seen. The hallway was dimly lit, wall sconces casting long shadows. Claire kept to the edges, her heart hammering so loud she was sure someone would hear it. She made it to the stairs without incident. The grand staircase stretched below her, marble gleaming in the low light. She could see the front entrance from here and the guard stationed beside it. Claire pulled back, pressed herself against the wall. She'd have to find another way down. She backtracked, found a servant's stairwell she'd noticed during her explorations. It was narrow and dark, but it led to the kitchen. From there she could access the garden doors. The stairs creaked under her weight. Claire froze, waited, but no one came. She kept moving. The kitchen was empty, cleaned and dark. Claire crossed to the garden door, tried the handle. Locked. She bit back a curse, looked around. There had to be a key somewhere. She started opening drawers as quietly as she could, feeling around in the dark. Silverware, towels, utensils. Then keys. A whole ring of them, hanging on a hook inside a cupboard. Claire grabbed them, tried the first one in the lock. Nothing. Second key. Third. Fourth. The fifth one turned. The door opened. Cold night air hit her face. Claire stepped outside, closed the door behind her, and ran. The gardens were a maze of paths and hedges, but she'd studied them from her window. She knew the general direction of the south gate. She just had to stay in the shadows, avoid the main paths, and light swept across the lawn. Claire dove behind a hedge, her heart in her throat. A guard walked past, flashlight in hand, radio crackling on his belt. He was humming something under his breath, relaxed. He hadn't seen her. Claire waited until he was gone, then kept moving. The south gate was old, wrought iron and ivy, tucked between two sections of the garden wall. Claire had only seen it once, from a distance. As she approached now, she could see Vincent had been telling the truth. The padlock hung open, chain loose. This was it. Claire reached for the gate. Going somewhere? She spun around. Vincent stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable in the darkness. Claire's mind raced. You said... I know what I said. Vincent stepped closer. I also said it might be a trap. Did you consider that? Yes. And you came anyway? I had to try. Vincent studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled something from his jacket, a cell phone. There's a hiking trail about 2 miles south, follows the ridge down to the valley. At the bottom, there's a ranger station. It's usually unmanned this time of year, but there's an emergency phone inside. Call someone. Anyone. Get help. Claire stared at the phone in his hand. Why are you helping me? Because I'm tired of being complicit. Vincent's voice was rough. Because I've watched this family destroy too many people, and I'm done pretending it's okay. He pressed the phone into her hand. Go, now, before I change my mind. Claire's fingers closed around the phone. What about Evelyn? I'll do what I can, but you can't help her if you're trapped here too. It was the same argument Claire had been having with herself for weeks, and she still didn't have a good answer. If Leon finds out you helped me, he won't. Vincent's jaw tightened. I'll say I saw you leaving, tried to stop you, you got away. It'll be fine. Vincent, go. Claire hesitated one more second. Then she shoved the phone in her pocket, pushed open the gate, and ran into the darkness. The forest was thick and black, trees pressing close on either side. Claire stumbled over roots, branches catching at her clothes. She kept moving, adrenaline drowning out the fear. She'd done it. She'd actually escaped. Now she just had to make it to the ranger station. 2 miles. She could do 2 miles. Behind her, somewhere in the distance, a shout went up. They'd found the open gate. Claire ran faster. The trail was rough, barely visible in the darkness. Claire pulled out the phone, turned on the flashlight feature, immediately regretted it when the bright light made her night vision vanish. She turned it off, let her eyes adjust, kept moving by feel. Her lungs burned. Her legs ached. She'd never been athletic, never been the kind of person who ran for fun, but terror was a hell of a motivator. The trail started to slope downward. Claire's foot slipped on loose gravel, and she went down hard, palms scraping against rock. She bit back a cry, pushed herself up, kept going. More shouts behind her, closer now. They were coming. Claire's breath came in ragged gasps. She couldn't keep this pace. She was going to collapse, or they were going to catch her, or both. Then she saw it. A break in the trees, a clearing, and in the middle of the clearing, a small wooden building. The ranger station. Claire put on a final burst of speed, crashed through the door. The inside was dark and smelled like dust and old wood. She fumbled for a light switch, found it, flooded the room with harsh fluorescent light. Emergency phone. Where was the emergency phone? There. On the wall, red box with white lettering. Claire yanked it open, grabbed the receiver, dialed. It rang once, twice. 911, what's your emergency? I've been kidnapped. The words tumbled out. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm at a ranger station somewhere in the mountains. I don't know exactly where, but there's an estate nearby, owned by Leon Moretti. He's been holding me prisoner. Please, you have to send help. The door burst open. 2 guards rushed in, grabbed her. Claire screamed, fought, but they were too strong. One of them ripped the phone from her hand, slammed it back on the hook. No, Claire kicked, clawed, anything to break free. Help! Someone help me! A hand clamped over her mouth. Enough! Leon's voice. He stepped into the ranger station, looking annoyed but not particularly angry, like this was an inconvenience, not a crisis. Bring her, he said. They dragged Claire outside. A black SUV was parked at the edge of the clearing, engine running. They shoved her into the back seat. Leon slid in beside her while the guards took the front. The SUV pulled away from the ranger station, heading back up the mountain. Claire's whole body shook. She'd been so close. So close. That was stupid, Leon said conversationally. Did you really think you'd make it? Claire didn't answer. The 911 call was recorded, of course. I'll have it deleted within the hour. The Rangers will find the phone off the hook tomorrow. Assume it was kids playing pranks. No one's coming to save you, Claire. They heard my name. They heard yours. And they'll forget both by morning. Leon's expression was calm, almost bored. I own people in every department of this county. Police, fire, emergency services. Your call went nowhere. Claire's hope crumbled. Vincent told you about the gate, didn't he? Leon continued. I wondered if he would. He's always had a soft spot for lost causes. Claire's blood went cold. Don't hurt him. He didn't what? Help you escape? Leon's smile was thin. He'll be dealt with, but that's not your concern right now. The SUV climbed back up the mountain road. Claire watched the trees pass by the window, her mind numb. She'd failed. Worse than failed. She'd gotten Vincent in trouble. She'd proven to Leon that she couldn't be trusted. And Evelyn. What would Leon do to Evelyn? As if reading her mind, Leon said, "Your friend is very upset. She's been crying since they discovered you were gone. I think she blames herself." "Please," Claire's voice broke. "Please don't hurt her. This was my fault. Only mine." "I know it was." Leon looked at her directly. "Which is why Evelyn's punishment will be minimal. But yours?" His smile widened. "That's another matter." They pulled up to the estate. Guards opened the SUV doors. Claire was hauled out, marched inside. But instead of taking her to her room, they led her down a different hallway, down a set of stairs she'd never seen before, to a basement. The room they put her in was small, windowless, with bare concrete walls and a single cot. No lamp, no bathroom, just a bucket in the corner and a door that locked from the outside. Leon stood in the doorway, watching as she took it all in. "You'll stay here until I decide you've learned your lesson," he said. "Food and water twice a day. No books, no contact with Evelyn, no privileges. Just time to think about what happens when you disobey me." "How long?" Claire whispered. "As long as it takes." He closed the door. The lock clicked. Darkness swallowed everything. Claire sank onto the cot, wrapped her arms around herself and tried not to cry. She'd gambled everything and lost. Time stopped meaning anything in the dark. Claire couldn't tell if hours had passed or days. Her eyes adjusted enough to make out vague shapes, but there was no natural light, no way to track the passage of time except by the meals that appeared twice a day. Bread, water, sometimes a piece of fruit, slid through a slot in the door by someone she never saw. She slept when exhaustion took her. She paced when restlessness became unbearable. She replayed the escape attempt over and over, looking for the moment where it all went wrong. Vincent's warning had been real. The gate had been unlocked. But Leon had known. He'd known, and he'd let her run just far enough to feel hope before crushing it. The cruelty of it was almost worse than the captivity. Claire didn't know how many days had passed when the door finally opened. Light flooded in, blinding her. She shielded her eyes, squinting at the silhouette in the doorway. "Come with me." Not Leon's voice. One of the guards. Claire stood on shaky legs. She'd barely moved in days, and her muscles protested. The guard grabbed her arm, steadied her, then led her upstairs. The brightness of the main floor hurt. Claire blinked, disoriented, as they walked through familiar hallways. The guard stopped outside a bathroom. "Clean yourself up. There are clothes inside. You have 15 minutes. He pushed her inside and closed the door. Claire stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing herself. Her hair was tangled, her face pale, eyes hollow. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. She showered quickly, scrubbing away days of sweat and fear. The clothes laid out were simple: jeans, a white t-shirt, a gray cardigan. She dressed, ran a comb through her hair, tried to pull herself together. When she emerged, the guard was waiting. He led her to the dining room. Leon sat at the head of the table, a full breakfast spread laid out in front of him. He looked up when Claire entered, gestured to the chair beside him. "Sit, eat." Claire sat. She wasn't hungry, but she forced herself to take a piece of toast, nibble at it. Leon watched her. "Have you learned your lesson?" "Yes." The word tasted like ash. "Good." Leon sipped his coffee. "Evelyn's been asking about you. She's quite worried. I thought you might like to see her today." Claire's head snapped up. "Is she okay?" "Physically, yes. Emotionally?" Leon shrugged. "Your little escape attempt upset her quite a bit. She seems to think she should have stopped you." The guilt twisted in Claire's stomach. "Can I see her?" "After we finish breakfast." Leon cut into his eggs. "There are new rules now, of course. You're not to be left unsupervised. A guard will accompany you everywhere. Your room will be locked at night. Any future infractions will result in significantly harsher consequences." "I understand." "Do you?" Leon set down his fork, turned to face her fully. "Because I need you to understand something, Claire. I don't enjoy this. The basement, the restrictions, the fear. But you forced my hand. You made me show you what happens when you test me." Claire said nothing. Evelyn needs you, Leon continued. She's isolated here, lonely. Having you around makes her more compliant, more willing to accept her situation, which makes my life easier. So I'd prefer to keep you comfortable. But if you force me to choose between your comfort and your obedience, I'll choose obedience every time. I won't run again, Claire said quietly. I know you won't. Leon smiled. Because now you know what it costs. He stood, buttoned his jacket. Finish eating. Then you can see Evelyn. I'm sure she'll be relieved to know you're unharmed. He left. Claire sat alone at the table, the food turning to sawdust in her mouth. She'd survived the basement, she'd survived the punishment, but something inside her had broken. Evelyn was waiting in the sitting room, pacing by the window. When Claire walked in, she whirled around, her face crumpling with relief. Claire! They met in the middle of the room, holding each other tightly. I'm so sorry, Evelyn whispered. I should have stopped you. I should have… No. Claire pulled back, gripped her shoulders. This wasn't your fault. It was mine. I made the choice. Leon said you were in the basement. He wouldn't let me see you. He said I had to wait until you'd learned. Evelyn's voice broke. I was so scared. I'm okay. I'm here. They sat together on the couch, hands clasped. The guard who'd accompanied Claire stood by the door, expressionless. Did he hurt you? Evelyn asked quietly. No, just locked me away for a while. And Vincent? Claire's stomach dropped. What about Vincent? Leon fired him, sent him away. He said Vincent was disloyal, that he'd been helping you. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Is that true? Claire's throat tightened. Vincent had lost everything because of her. He gave me information, she admitted, about the gate, but I pushed for it. He tried to talk me out of it. It was a lie, but a necessary one. Leon's been paranoid since you ran, Evelyn continued. He's convinced someone else in the family is working against him. He's been interrogating everyone, cutting people off. It's been horrible. I'm sorry. The words felt useless, inadequate. You tried to escape. Evelyn looked at her. You got closer than anyone I've ever seen. For a moment, I thought maybe you'd actually make it. I didn't. No, but you tried. That's more than I've ever done. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of everything pressing down. What happens now? Claire asked finally. We survive. Evelyn's voice was hollow. That's all there is. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be more than just survival, but the basement had taught her the price of hope, so she just held her friend's hand and said nothing. The weeks that followed were different. Claire was never alone. A guard shadowed her everywhere, to meals, to the library, to her room. At night, her door was locked from the outside. The windows in her new room were fitted with bars. She was a prisoner in ways she hadn't been before, but she played the part Leon wanted, quiet, obedient, defeated. She ate meals with Evelyn, read books in the library, attended family dinners when required. She spoke when spoken to and kept her head down. Leon seemed satisfied. The anger from the escape attempt faded. He returned to treating her like a piece of furniture, present but unremarkable. Claire let him think he'd won. But in the quiet moments, when she was alone in her locked room, she thought about Vincent's words, about the phone call that had almost connected, about how close she'd come. She'd failed, but she had proven something to herself. She wasn't as weak as everyone thought, and someday that might matter. 2 months after the escape attempt, Evelyn came to lunch with news. I'm pregnant, she said quietly, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. Claire's breath caught. Does Leon know? I told him this morning. He's pleased. Evelyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. He wants an heir. This will make him happy. How do you feel about it? Evelyn was quiet for a long time. Terrified, she admitted finally. I don't want to bring a child into this, into his world, but I don't have a choice. Claire reached across the table, took her hand. You'll be a good mother. Will I? Evelyn's voice cracked. How can I protect a child when I can't even protect myself? You'll find a way. We both will. It was a promise Claire had no idea how to keep, but she made it anyway, because sometimes promises were all you had left. The pregnancy changed everything and nothing at the same time. Leon became almost gentle with Evelyn in those early months, his hand resting on her stomach at dinner, his voice softer when he spoke to her. Claire watched it all with a sick feeling in her gut because she knew it wasn't love. It was possession. Leon didn't care about Evelyn. He cared about the child she was carrying, the heir that would cement his place in the family. Evelyn grew quieter as her belly grew. She stopped meeting Claire's eyes as often. She spent more time in her room, resting on doctor's orders, while Claire sat in supervised silence in the library or picked at meals alone. The estate felt bigger somehow, emptier. 3 months into the pregnancy, Evelyn had her first serious scare. Claire was reading when Mrs. Kovac appeared in the library doorway, her face tight. "Miss Bennett, Mrs. Moretti has been taken to the hospital. Mr. Moretti thought you should know." Claire's book fell from her hands. "Is she okay?" "What happened?" "Bleeding. The doctors are with her now." Claire stood. "I need to see her." "That's not possible." "I don't care what's possible. She's my friend, and I need—" Mr. Moretti was very clear. "You're to remain here." The guard by the door shifted, hand moving to his belt. A reminder. Claire's hands balled into fists. "At least tell me if she's okay, please." Mrs. Kovac's expression softened slightly. "I'll let you know when I hear something." She left. Claire sank back into her chair, her heart racing. She tried to return to her book, but the words blurred. She stood, paced, sat down again. The guard watched her with the same blank expression he always wore. Hours crawled by. Finally, near midnight, Mrs. Kovac returned. "Mrs. Moretti is stable. The baby is fine. They're keeping her overnight for observation, but the doctors say she should make a full recovery." Relief hit Claire so hard she had to grip the arm of the chair. "Thank you. Mr. Moretti will bring her home tomorrow. You may see her then." Claire nodded, not trusting her voice. That night, alone in her locked room, she let herself cry. For Evelyn. For the baby who would be born into this nightmare. For herself, trapped and useless, unable to help the one person who mattered. Evelyn came home the next afternoon, pale and drawn. Leon hovered, playing the concerned husband for the doctor who accompanied them. Claire stood to the side, waiting. When Leon finally left to take a phone call, Claire moved to Evelyn's side. "I'm okay," Evelyn said before Claire could ask. "It was just spotting. The doctor said it happens sometimes." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Evelyn's hand moved to her stomach. "The baby's fine, strong heartbeat. Everything's fine." But her voice wavered on the last word. Claire pulled a chair close, sat down. "You don't have to pretend with me." Evelyn's composure cracked. "I thought I was losing it. For a few hours, I thought maybe this nightmare would just end. And then I felt so guilty for thinking that because it's not the baby's fault. None of this is the baby's fault." "No, it's not." "What kind of mother thinks like that?" "The kind who's been through hell," Claire said quietly. "You're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to wish things were different. I keep thinking about what happens when the baby comes. If it's a boy, Leon will want him raised a certain way, taught the family business, turned into another version of him." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "And if it's a girl—" She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Claire took her hand. "We'll figure it out, one day at a time." "You keep saying that, but I don't see how anything gets better." Claire didn't have an answer for that. The pregnancy progressed. Evelyn's stomach grew round. Leon hired a nurse to monitor her constantly, a stern woman named Mrs. Chen who took her job seriously and reported everything back to Leon. Claire saw less of Evelyn during those months. The nurse kept her on bed rest, monitored her meals, her sleep, her stress levels. Claire was allowed brief visits, always supervised, always with Mrs. Chen hovering nearby taking notes. It felt like losing her friend all over again. Claire filled her days with routine: breakfast, library, lunch, more reading, dinner, bed. The same guard followed her everywhere, a man named Marcus who never spoke unless necessary. She learned to exist around him, to pretend he wasn't there. One afternoon in the library, she found herself staring at a shelf of art books. Photography collections, museum catalogs, books on famous painters. She pulled one down, a heavy volume on Italian Renaissance art, and started flipping through it. The images were beautiful, detailed. She'd always liked art, had taken a few classes in college, but had never pursued it seriously. She spent the rest of the afternoon with that book. then another, then another. It was something to do, something to think about besides the locked doors and the guards and Evelyn's growing belly. A week later, Leon found her in the library surrounded by art books. "Developing new interests?" he asked. Claire looked up, wary. Leon rarely sought her out directly anymore. "Just reading." "You have a good eye." He picked up one of the books, glanced at the page she'd marked. "Caravaggio. Excellent choice. I didn't know you were interested in art." "My family collects paintings, sculptures, rare pieces from private estates." Leon set the book down. "We keep most of it in the vault, but I've been thinking about putting together a proper gallery, something to show visiting associates." Claire said nothing. "You studied art history in college, didn't you?" Her stomach dropped. Of course he knew that. He knew everything. "One semester," she said carefully. "I wasn't very good at it." "That's not what your transcripts say." Leon smiled. "You got an A. The professor noted you had real talent for analysis and curation." Claire's hands tightened on the book in her lap. "I have a proposition," Leon continued. "The family's collection needs organizing. Proper cataloging, preservation assessments, display recommendations. It's not a small job. It would take months, maybe years. You want me to work for you. I want to give you purpose." Leon's tone was almost kind. "You're clearly bored, restless. This would give you something productive to do, and in return you'd have more freedom. No more guards following you everywhere. Access to the parts of the estate you'd need for the work. Meals with Evelyn when she's feeling up to it." It was a cage dressed up as an opportunity, but it was also the first time Leon had offered her anything resembling autonomy since the escape attempt. "What's the catch?" Claire asked. "No catch. You do good work, you get privileges. You try to run again, you lose everything." Leon's smile hardened. "Simple as that." Claire looked down at the art book in her lap, at the beautiful stolen paintings inside. "I'll do it," she said. What choice did she have? The vault was in the basement, past the room where Claire had been locked up, down another hallway she'd never seen. Leon led her there himself, Marcus trailing behind. "The collection has been in the family for generations," Leon explained as he unlocked a heavy steel door. "Some pieces were purchased legitimately. Others were acquired through less conventional means. But all of it is valuable, irreplaceable." The door swung open. Claire stepped inside and stopped. The vault was massive. Paintings lined the walls, stacked against each other 3 and 4 deep. Sculptures sat on pedestals, some still wrapped in protective cloth. Crates filled with more art were piled in corners. It was a fortune, a museum's worth of stolen beauty. "This is where you'll work," Leon said. "Mrs. Kovac will bring you meals. You'll have access from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. Marcus will be stationed outside if you need anything." Claire walked slowly into the room, her eyes moving over the paintings. She recognized some of them, or at least recognized the styles. Renaissance portraits, Baroque landscapes, modern pieces that looked like they belonged in galleries, not underground vaults. "Where did all this come from?" she asked. "Various sources. My grandfather started the collection. My father expanded it. I've added pieces over the years." Leon's voice held a note of pride. "It's a legacy. Something to pass down." Something stolen, Claire thought, something hidden, but she kept that to herself. "I'll need supplies," she said instead. "Proper cataloging software, archival materials, reference books. Make a list. I'll have everything delivered by tomorrow." Leon left her there, the vault door standing open. Claire stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by art that had been ripped from its rightful homes, and felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders. This was her life now, organizing a criminal's stolen treasures. But at least it was something. The work consumed her. Claire arrived at the vault each morning and stayed until the last possible minute. She started with a full inventory, documenting every piece, photographing it, researching its provenance when possible. Some paintings had documentation, purchase receipts, auction records. Others had nothing. Those were the stolen ones, Claire guessed. The ones taken from museums or private collections or people who'd been in debt to the Moretti family. She tried not to think too hard about that part. The days developed a rhythm. Morning inventory work, lunch brought down by Mrs. Kovac. Afternoon research and documentation. Evening returned to her room, exhausted but with her mind blessedly occupied. She didn't see much of Evelyn during those months. The pregnancy had reached its final trimester, and Evelyn was confined to bed almost constantly. Claire visited when allowed, sitting beside her friend's bed, talking about neutral things, the weather, books, anything but the baby or the future. Evelyn looked tired all the time now. Her face was puffy, her movements slow. But when Claire asked how she was feeling, she always said the same thing. Fine. Everything's fine. It never sounded convincing. One afternoon in the vault, Claire was examining a small painting, a portrait of a woman in a dark dress, when she noticed something odd about the frame. The backing looked newer than the rest of it. She carefully removed the painting from the wall, turned it over. The backing was indeed newer, and there was a seam, almost invisible, along one edge. Claire hesitated. This wasn't part of her job. She was supposed to catalog, not investigate. But curiosity won out. She carefully pried the backing loose. Behind it, folded tightly, was a piece of paper. Claire unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a letter dated 15 years ago, written in Italian. Her Italian was rusty, but she could make out enough to understand the basic message. It was a plea from someone's daughter begging the Moretti family to return a painting that had been stolen from her dead mother's estate. The painting in Claire's hands. Claire's stomach turned. She refolded the letter, slipped it back behind the backing, replaced everything exactly as it had been. Then she sat down on the floor and tried to breathe. These weren't just paintings. They were pieces of people's lives, ripped away, families destroyed, legacies stolen. And she was helping organize them, making them easier for Leon to show off. Claire pressed her hands against her eyes. She'd told herself this work was just survival, a way to get through each day. But sitting there on that cold vault floor, she felt like a collaborator, like she'd become part of the machine that crushed people. You okay down there? Claire looked up. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression curious. Fine, she lied. Just dropped something. He nodded, returned to his post. Claire got back to work. What else could she do? Evelyn went into labor on a Tuesday. Claire was in the vault when Mrs. Kovac appeared, breathless. It's time. The baby's coming. Claire abandoned her work, ran upstairs, but she was stopped at Evelyn's bedroom door by Mrs. Chen. Family only, the nurse said firmly. I'm her best friend. I need to... Family only. The door closed in Claire's face. Claire stood in the hallway, listening to Evelyn's cries through the heavy wood, useless and furious and terrified. Marcus appeared at her elbow. You should return to your room, Miss Bennet. No. Miss Bennet. I'm not leaving. Claire sat down on the floor, back against the wall. I'll wait here until it's over. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Mr. Moretti won't... I don't care what Mr. Moretti wants. They stared at each other. Then Marcus sighed and took up a position across the hall. They waited. Hours passed. Evelyn's cries grew louder, then stopped, then started again. Claire's fingernails dug crescents into her palms. She wanted to break down the door, wanted to be there, wanted to help, but all she could do was sit and listen. Finally, near dawn, she heard it. A baby crying. The door opened. The doctor emerged, pulling off bloody gloves. He saw Claire on the floor and frowned. You're the friend? Claire scrambled to her feet. Is she okay? Is the baby... Both healthy. It's a girl. A girl. Relief and grief hit Claire at the same time. Relief that Evelyn had survived. Grief for the daughter who would grow up in this house, under Leon's control. Can I see her? The doctor hesitated, then nodded. Briefly, she's exhausted. Claire slipped inside. Evelyn lay in the bed, pale and sweaty, hair plastered to her forehead, and in her arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, was the smallest human Claire had ever seen. Claire, Evelyn's voice was hoarse. I'm here. Claire moved to the bedside, looked down at the baby. Tiny features, dark hair, eyes squeezed shut, perfect and terrifying. Her name is Lila, Evelyn whispered. She's beautiful. Leon wanted a boy. Evelyn's laugh was bitter. He's disappointed. I can see it. Then he's an idiot. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. How to protect her. We'll figure it out, together. It was the same promise Claire had been making for months, and she still didn't know how to keep it. But looking at that tiny, helpless baby, she knew she had to try. Leon kept his distance from Evelyn and the baby in those first weeks. He came by occasionally, looked at Lila with an expression Claire couldn't quite read, then left. Disappointed, maybe. Or just bored by the messy reality of a newborn. Either way, it gave Evelyn breathing room. Claire spent every free moment she had with them. She helped with feedings, diaper changes, the 1,000 small tasks that came with a new baby. Evelyn was exhausted, overwhelmed, barely holding it together. "I can't do this," she said one night, rocking a crying Lila. "I can't. I'm so tired and she won't stop crying and I don't know what she needs." "You're doing fine," Claire said, taking the baby gently. "You're just tired. Let me take her for a bit." Claire walked laps around the room, bouncing Lila gently. The baby's cries quieted to whimpers, then stopped. Her tiny body relaxed against Claire's chest. Claire looked down at her, at this small person who hadn't asked to be born into any of this. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry the world you got is this one." Lila yawned, her tiny mouth opening wide. And despite everything, Claire felt something in her chest crack open. Love. Fierce and protective and terrifying. She'd failed to save Evelyn, failed to escape, failed at everything. But maybe she could do this one thing right. Maybe she could help keep this child safe. It wasn't much, but it was something. The months blurred together. Lila grew, started smiling, learned to recognize faces. Evelyn recovered slowly, her body healing even as her spirit seemed to fade. Leon remained distant, absorbed in family business that took him away from the estate for days at a time. Claire returned to the vault work when she could, cataloging and organizing, building a database of stolen beauty. She'd gotten good at compartmentalizing, at not thinking too hard about what she was really doing. She survived. They all survived. And that was enough. It had to be. Then, one afternoon, a year and a half after Lila's birth, Leon summoned Claire to his office. She went, heart pounding, trying to figure out what she'd done wrong. Leon sat behind his desk, looking tired. There were new lines on his face, gray threading through his dark hair. "Sit," he said. Claire sat. "The family's been having some difficulties," Leon said bluntly. "Internal conflicts, power struggles. My uncle Marcello thinks I'm too soft, too focused on legitimate business instead of our traditional operations. There are others who agree with him." Claire said nothing. "It's going to get worse before it gets better. And when it does, this estate might not be safe." Leon leaned back in his chair. "I'm telling you this because you've proven yourself useful. Your work on the collection has been excellent. You've earned a degree of trust." "What do you want from me?" Claire asked. "If something happens to me, I want you to stay with Evelyn and Lila. Help them. Protect them." Claire stared at him. "You're asking me to promise to stay imprisoned here even if you die?" "I'm asking you to protect people you care about." Leon's expression was hard. "Because if I'm gone, others in the family will come for them. For Lila especially, she's my heir. They'll use her, control her, or kill her to eliminate my line, unless someone is there to prevent it." "You're insane if you think—" "I'm realistic," Leon cut her off. "You love that child. I've seen it. And you love Evelyn. If I die, they'll need you more than ever." Claire's mind raced. "What about letting us go? All of us? If you're worried about them, where would you go? Evelyn's father is dead. She has no money, no resources. You're a missing person on paper, presumed dead after a failed 911 call that was buried. Neither of you exists in the real world anymore." Leon's voice was almost gentle. "You belong here now. All of you. The only question is whether you'll be here as victims or as survivors." Claire wanted to scream, to flip the desk, to do anything but sit there and accept his twisted logic. But he was right about one thing. She did love Lila and Evelyn. And if Leon died, they would be vulnerable. "If I agree," she said slowly, "what do I get?" "Continued freedom within the estate. Guaranteed safety for Evelyn and Lila. And my word that I'll never separate you from them." "Your word?" Claire's laugh was harsh. "It's all I have to give." They looked at each other across the desk. "Fine," Claire said finally. "I'll stay. I'll help them. But not for you. For them." Leon nodded. "That's all I'm asking." Claire stood to leave. "One more thing," Leon said. "If the time comes and you have to make a choice between running and staying, choose." choose staying. They'll need you more than you need freedom. Claire walked out without answering, but deep down, she knew he was right. She'd already made that choice the moment she'd held Lila for the first time. Leon's warning proved prophetic sooner than Claire expected. The estate grew tense over the following months. Men in dark suits came and went at odd hours, their voices sharp behind closed doors. Leon spent less time at home, more time in meetings that ran late into the night. When he was present, his jaw was tight, his patience thin. Marcello appeared more frequently, his silver hair and cold smile a constant presence at family dinners. He watched Evelyn and Lila with an intensity that made Claire's skin crawl. Once, she caught him studying Lila as she played with blocks on the floor, his expression calculating. "She has his eyes," Marcello said to no one in particular. "Strong genes. The family will continue." Evelyn pulled Lila closer, said nothing. That night, Claire found Evelyn in the nursery, standing by the crib and watching Lila sleep. "He scares me," Evelyn whispered. "Marcello, the way he looks at her. Like she's not a person, like she's just another piece on a game board. Leon won't let anything happen to her. Leon might not have a choice." Evelyn turned to face Claire. "You've heard the arguments, the shouting. They're fighting over control of the family. If Marcello wins, he won't. You don't know that." Claire didn't, but she couldn't admit it. They stood in silence, watching the rise and fall of Lila's small chest. She was almost 2 now, starting to form real words, her personality emerging. Stubborn, like her mother. Observant in ways that sometimes startled Claire. "If something happens," Evelyn said quietly, "promise me you'll take care of her." "Nothing's going to happen." "Promise me anyway." Claire looked at her friend's face, saw the fear there. "I promise." Evelyn's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you." The tension broke 3 weeks later. Claire was in the vault, photographing a series of small Renaissance portraits when she heard it. Gunshots. Distant but unmistakable. Sharp cracks echoing through the estate. She froze, heart hammering. More shots, shouting. Claire dropped the camera and ran for the stairs. Marcus appeared at the vault door, blocking her path. "Stay here," he ordered. "What's happening?" "Stay. Here." He pulled the heavy door shut. The lock engaged. Claire was alone in the vault, the walls thick enough to muffle most sound. But she could still hear raised voices, running footsteps overhead, the occasional gunshot. She pressed her ear to the door, trying to make sense of it. A war. That's what it sounded like. A war happening in the house above her, and Evelyn and Lila were up there somewhere. Claire pounded on the door. "Let me out, Marcus, someone." No answer. She searched the vault frantically, looking for another way out, a phone, anything. But Leon had been thorough. The vault was designed to keep people out, not in, but the effect was the same. She was trapped. Hours passed. The sounds above grew sporadic, then stopped altogether. Silence settled over everything, thick and suffocating. Claire sat on the floor, arms wrapped around herself, and waited. Finally, footsteps approached. The lock disengaged. The door opened. Vincent stood there, blood on his shirt, a gun in his hand. He looked older than Claire remembered, harder. "Come with me," he said. "What happened? Where's Evelyn? Where's Lila?" "They're safe. Come on." Vincent led her upstairs. The hallways were empty, but Claire could see signs of violence, bullet holes in walls, broken furniture, blood on the marble floor. "Vincent, what the hell happened?" Marcello made his move, tried to take control of the family. Leon fought back. Vincent's voice was flat. It didn't end well for either of them. Claire's stomach dropped. "Where's Leon?" Vincent stopped at the top of the stairs, turned to face her. "Dead. Marcello too. Half the family's dead or scattered. It's over." The words didn't feel real. "Evelyn," Claire said. "I need to see Evelyn." Vincent led her to Evelyn's rooms. Inside, Evelyn sat on the couch, Lila clutched in her arms. Both were unharmed, but Evelyn's eyes were red and swollen. "Claire!" Evelyn's voice broke. Claire crossed the room, wrapped her arms around both of them. Lila was crying, confused and frightened by the chaos. Claire held them while Evelyn shook silently. "What happens now?" Evelyn asked when she could speak. Vincent, still standing in the doorway, answered, "I'm taking control. What's left of it, anyway? The family's fractured. Most of the old guard is dead or scattered. It'll take time to rebuild. And us? Claire asked. That's up to you. Vincent holstered his gun. I can keep you here, safe but still prisoners, or I can let you go. Evelyn's head snapped up. Go? You're Leon's widow, but you have no real claim to power, and frankly, you're a liability. Too many people know you were forced into this marriage. Too many loose ends. Vincent's expression was unreadable. So I'm offering you a choice. Stay and live under my protection, or take what you can carry and leave. Claire's mind raced. Freedom. After all these years, actual freedom. But Evelyn was already shaking her head. Where would we go? She asked. I have nothing. No money of my own, no family, no job prospects. And Lila? Her voice cracked. She's Leon's heir. People will come looking for her eventually. People who want to use her or hurt her. Not if they think you're dead, Vincent said. Silence. What are you suggesting? Claire asked carefully. A fire. Tonight. The East Wing is already damaged from the fighting. It wouldn't be hard to make it look like an accident. Bodies burned beyond recognition. A tragic end to Leon Moretti's family. Vincent's voice was a matter of fact. You'd have to leave everything behind. New identities, new lives, no looking back. But you'd be free. Evelyn looked at Claire, her expression desperate and terrified. This was it. The escape Claire had dreamed about for years. The chance to walk away and never look back. But leaving meant abandoning everything, every connection to their old lives. And it meant trusting Vincent, a man who'd helped her once and then disappeared when Leon caught her. Why are you doing this? Claire asked. What do you get out of it? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. A clean conscience, maybe. I've stood by and watched this family destroy too many people. I'm tired of it. He looked at Evelyn and Lila. You deserve better. All of you. If we stay, Evelyn said slowly, what does that look like? You live here as my guests, protected, comfortable, but still under family rules, no leaving without permission, no contact with the outside world, a gilded cage just like Leon's. And if we go? You're ghosts. I give you money, documents, a head start. After that, you're on your own. Claire watched Evelyn's face, saw her struggling with the decision. Lila deserves a normal life, Claire said quietly. A childhood outside these walls, schools, friends, a future that isn't predetermined by a family she didn't choose. She also deserves stability, Evelyn countered. Safety. Here, she's protected. Out there, we'd be looking over our shoulders forever. You've been looking over your shoulder since the day you married Leon. Evelyn flinched but didn't argue. I can't make this choice alone, she said finally. Claire, what do you want? Claire looked at Lila, who had stopped crying and was now watching the adults with wide, confused eyes. Then she looked at Evelyn, exhausted and scared and barely holding herself together. What did Claire want? She'd spent years as a prisoner, dreaming of freedom, but she'd also spent those years becoming something she'd never expected. A mother figure to Lila, a support system for Evelyn, someone they both needed. Walking away would give her back her life. Staying would give Lila and Evelyn theirs. I think, Claire said carefully, that we should stay. Evelyn's eyes widened. What? Hear me out. We don't know what's waiting out there. We don't know if Vincent's documents would hold up under scrutiny. We don't know if someone from the family would eventually find us. Claire took a breath. But here, we know what we're dealing with. And if Vincent's really offering protection without Leon's cruelty, maybe that's enough. Enough to stay trapped? Enough to give Lila a stable home, enough to stop running. Claire held Evelyn's gaze. I've tried running, I've tried escaping. It doesn't work. But surviving? That I'm good at. Evelyn looked down at Lila, then back at Claire. You really think we should stay? I think we should choose what we can live with. And I can live with staying if it means Lila is safe. Vincent cleared his throat. I need an answer. Tonight. The fire needs to happen soon or the story won't hold. If we stay, Evelyn said, things have to change. No more locked doors, no more guards following us everywhere. We need to be able to move freely, to make choices about how we raise Lila. Done, Vincent said immediately. And if we ever want to leave, you let us go. No arguments, no consequences. Vincent hesitated. That I can't promise. Once you're part of this world, you know too much. But I can promise I won't keep you prisoner the way Leon did. You'll have freedom within limits. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than anything Leon had offered. Evelyn looked at Claire one more time. Claire nodded. Okay, Evelyn said quietly. We'll stay. Vincent's shoulders relaxed slightly. Good. I'll make the arrangements. The story will be that you died in the fire along with Leon. As far as the world is concerned, you're ghosts. He left, closing the door behind him. Evelyn and Claire sat in silence, Lila dozing between them. Did we just make a terrible mistake? Evelyn asked. Maybe, Claire admitted, but it's our mistake to make. Evelyn laughed, sharp and bitter. After everything, we're still here. Yeah, we are. They sat together until Lila woke up asking for water, and life resumed its strange, suspended normalcy. The fire happened 2 nights later. Claire watched from a safe distance as the east wing burned, flames lighting up the night sky. Fire trucks came, but by the time they arrived, the damage was done. The official report would say Leon Moretti, his wife Evelyn, and several associates had died in the blaze, a tragic accident during what appeared to be a violent confrontation within the family. The news ran the story for a week, then moved on. Evelyn Bennett Moretti and Claire Bennett ceased to exist in any meaningful way. What remained were 2 women and a child, living in a massive estate under the protection of a man they didn't entirely trust, waiting to see if this new arrangement would be any better than the last. The weeks after the fire were strange. The estate was quieter with so many dead or gone. Vincent brought in new staff, people loyal to him rather than the old guard. Mrs. Kovacs stayed, as unflappable as ever. Marcus disappeared. Claire never learned if he died in the fighting or simply left. True to his word, Vincent removed the locks from their doors. The guards who'd shadowed Claire's every move vanished. She could walk the halls freely, access any room except Vincent's private office, and the parts of the basement used for family business. It felt like freedom, even though Claire knew it wasn't. Not really. Evelyn struggled in those early months. Without Leon's oppressive presence, she seemed lost, uncertain how to exist in this new reality. She spent most of her time with Lila, teaching her letters and numbers, reading stories, playing simple games. It was like she was trying to compress a normal childhood into every available moment, making up for lost time. Claire returned to the vault. Vincent had asked her to continue the cataloging work, offering to pay her a salary for it. Real money, deposited into an account he set up in a name that wasn't quite Claire Bennett, but close enough. You don't have to keep doing this, Vincent said when he made the offer. I know it bothers you working with stolen art. It does, Claire admitted, but I'm good at it. And it gives me something to do besides think about everything I've lost. Vincent nodded, understanding in his eyes. Let me know if you ever want to stop. But Claire didn't stop. She threw herself into the work, building the most comprehensive catalog the collection had ever had. She researched provenance, tracked down stories behind individual pieces, documented everything with meticulous care. Some nights, alone in the vault, she'd find letters tucked behind paintings. More pleas from families who'd had their treasures stolen. More evidence of the Moretti family's legacy of taking what didn't belong to them. Claire kept those letters, filed them away in a separate folder. She wasn't sure why. Maybe someday they'd matter. Maybe someday she'd be able to return at least some of what had been stolen. But for now, she just documented everything and tried not to think too hard about what it meant. Lila turned 3, then 4. She was a bright child, curious and stubborn, with Evelyn's determination and Leon's sharp intelligence. She loved books, loved asking questions, loved following Claire around the vault, asking what each painting was about. "Why is that lady so sad?" Lila asked one afternoon, pointing at a portrait of a woman in dark clothing. "I don't know," Claire said honestly. "Maybe she'd lost something important to her." "Like what?" "Maybe someone she loved." Lila considered this seriously. "Do you think she got them back?" "No, sweetie. I don't think she did." "That's sad." "Yeah, it is." Lila moved on to the next painting, her attention already elsewhere. But Claire stood looking at the sad woman for a long time after. Vincent proved to be a different kind of keeper than Leon had been. He was distant but not cruel, businesslike but not heartless. He had dinner with them once a week, asked about Lila's progress, made sure they had what they needed, but he was also still part of the family business. Men in suits still came and went. Shipments still arrived in unmarked trucks. Money still changed hands in ways that probably weren't legal. Claire tried not to think about it. One evening, almost 2 years after Leon's death, Vincent asked Claire to join him in his office. She went wary. Vincent didn't usually summon her for private conversations. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. Claire sat. Vincent poured himself a drink, didn't offer her one. "I've been thinking about the future, about what happens to this estate, the collection, all of it when I'm gone." "Planning your retirement?" Claire tried to keep her tone light. "Planning for reality. This life doesn't come with retirement. It comes with a bullet or a cell if you're lucky." Vincent took a sip. "I don't have children, no direct heirs. The family's fractured, most of the old lines dead or scattered, which means when I die, this all becomes someone else's problem." Claire said nothing. "Lila is Leon's daughter. Technically, she has a claim to the family legacy." Claire's hands tightened on the armrests. "She's 5 years old. Now, yes, but someday she'll be grown, and when that day comes, people will remember who her father was. They'll come looking for her. Then we'll leave, before that happens. Will you?" Vincent's gaze was steady. "You've had chances to leave. I've given you opportunities, but you always stay. For Lila, for Evelyn, for yourself too, I think." Vincent set down his glass. "You've built a life here, Claire. Not a perfect one, but a life nonetheless. You have work you're good at, people who depend on you, purpose." "I have a cage," Claire said flatly. "A nicer cage than Leon's, but still a cage." "Maybe. Or maybe you've made peace with what you can't change and found meaning in what you can." Claire didn't have an answer for that. Vincent stood, walked to the window. "I'm going to set up a trust. Money for Lila's future. Enough that when she's 18 she can choose her own path. Stay and claim her inheritance, or walk away and build something new." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you'll be the one helping her make that choice. Evelyn loves her, but Evelyn's been broken by this place. She'll never push Lila to leave, but you might. You want me to raise her to reject everything the family stands for? I want you to raise her to make her own choices, to be stronger than her father, smarter than me." Vincent turned to face her. "Can you do that?" Claire thought about Lila, bright and curious and still innocent of what her last name meant. "Yes," she said. "I can do that." Vincent nodded. "Good." As Claire stood to leave, Vincent spoke again. "Claire, thank you. For staying. For helping them. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," Claire said quietly. "They needed me." She left before he could respond. The years passed. Lila grew. She learned to read, to write, to paint in the vault alongside Claire. Evelyn taught her kindness and strength, even as her own spirit remained fragile. Claire taught her to question everything, to think critically, to see the world as it was, rather than as others claimed it to be. They didn't talk about Leon, didn't talk about the family business, didn't talk about the fact that their entire existence was built on lies and violence. They just lived. Claire finished cataloging the collection in Lila's 7th year, every piece documented, photographed, researched. She presented the completed database to Vincent with a mix of pride and shame. "This is incredible work," Vincent said, scrolling through the files. "Museum quality." "It's a museum's worth of stolen art," Claire replied. "Quality doesn't change that." Vincent looked at her. "What would you do with it? If you had the power to decide?" "Return it, every piece, to the families it was taken from, to the museums it belonged to. And if that destroyed the family, if it meant prosecution, prison, ruin?" Claire met his gaze steadily. "Then let it be destroyed. Some things deserve to burn." Vincent's expression was unreadable. "You might get your wish someday." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means the world is changing. The old ways don't work like they used to. Eventually everything catches up with you." Vincent closed the laptop. "Keep the record safe." Someday they might matter. He didn't elaborate. But 3 months later, Claire understood. Federal agents raided the estate at dawn. They came with warrants, badges, guns drawn. Vincent was arrested on charges of racketeering, fraud, money laundering, and a dozen other crimes Claire only half understood. She, Evelyn, and Lila were placed in protective custody while investigators tore the estate apart. The vault was emptied, the collection seized as evidence. Claire's carefully maintained records became the key piece of the prosecution's case. Everything Claire had documented, every stolen piece, every shady transaction, every link in the chain of the Moretti family's criminal empire, it all became evidence. Vincent went to trial 6 months later. He was convicted on 37 counts and sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. The estate was seized, the collection auctioned off, the proceeds going to victims' funds and restitution. And Claire, Evelyn, and Lila were offered a deal. New identities, relocation, a chance to disappear completely and start over. Real freedom, this time. They took it. The U.S. Marshals gave them 3 new names and a small apartment in Portland, Oregon. Far from the mountains, far from the estate, far from everything they'd known for the past 8 years. Claire Harper, Evelyn Ross, Lila Ross. The names felt wrong in Claire's mouth for weeks. She'd stumble over them when making appointments, signing forms, introducing herself to neighbors. Evelyn barely spoke those first few months, just moved through the motions of unpacking boxes and enrolling Lila in public school and pretending this was all normal. But Lila adapted like children do, with a resilience that broke Claire's heart. She made friends at school within days. She came home chattering about her teacher, about recess, about a girl named Sophie who had the same backpack. She didn't seem to miss the estate at all. Maybe that was the gift of being young. You could leave horror behind and just keep moving forward. Claire wished she had that skill. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough for all 3 of them to stand in. After the sprawling estate, it felt like a shoebox. But it was theirs. No guards, no locked doors, no men in suits discussing business they weren't supposed to hear. Their first night there, Claire stood at the window looking out at the city lights while Evelyn put Lila to bed. "We're really free," Evelyn said, appearing beside her. "Yeah, we are. So why doesn't it feel that way?" Claire didn't have an answer. The freedom they'd dreamed about for years turned out to be complicated. They had new names, but no work history to support them. The Marshals provided basic living expenses for 6 months, after which they'd need jobs, real ones, to support themselves. Claire's art history degree was a decade old and useless without references she couldn't provide. Evelyn had never worked a day in her life. They were starting from nothing at an age when most people had established careers. "I can get a job at a coffee shop," Evelyn said one morning, scanning want ads. "Or retail. Something entry-level." "You've never worked retail." "I've never done a lot of things. Doesn't mean I can't learn." Claire looked at her friend, really looked at her. Evelyn had always been the bold one, the risk-taker, but the estate had worn her down to someone who flinched at loud noises and had nightmares most nights. The idea of her dealing with demanding customers and long shifts on her feet seemed impossible. "What about you?" Evelyn asked. "What will you do?" "I don't know yet." But she did know. She just wasn't ready to say it out loud. Claire spent the next week visiting museums, galleries, art restoration shops. Not to apply for jobs. She couldn't, not with her fake background. But to observe, to remember what the art world looked like outside of a criminal's vault. At a small gallery in downtown Portland, she met the owner, a woman in her 60s named Margaret Chen. The gallery specialized in local artists, nothing fancy, but everything was displayed with care and respect. "Can I help you?" Margaret asked when Claire had been standing in front of the same landscape for 10 minutes. "Just admiring the work." "You have a good eye. That's one of our best pieces." Margaret came to stand beside her. "Are you an artist?" "No, I used to work in art cataloging a long time ago." "Used to?" Life got complicated. Margaret studied her. Complicated how? Claire hesitated. The instinct to lie, to protect herself, was overwhelming, but something about Margaret's direct gaze made her want to tell at least part of the truth. "I worked for someone who collected art through questionable means. When his operation got shut down, I lost everything. Now I'm trying to figure out what comes next." It was the most honest she'd been with a stranger in years. Margaret nodded slowly. The art world is full of questionable means. Provenance gets messy. Ownership gets disputed. Not everyone who loves art loves it for the right reasons. No, they don't. But you do. It wasn't a question. I think so, Claire said. I hope so. Margaret smiled. I could use help here, part-time to start. The pay isn't great, but you'd be working with real art, properly acquired, helping connect it with people who'll actually appreciate it. Claire's throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know you stood in front of that painting for 10 minutes and didn't check your phone once. I know you have the vocabulary and posture of someone who spent real time with art, and I know you're looking for a second chance. Margaret extended her hand. I'm willing to take a risk if you are. Claire shook it. When do I start? The job at the gallery gave Claire something she hadn't had in years, purpose that didn't come with shame attached. She helped Margaret with inventory, arranged displays, talked to customers about the pieces. It was simple work, honest work, and it felt like medicine. Evelyn found a job at a bookstore, shelving and running the register. She came home exhausted every night, but also lighter somehow, like the simple act of earning her own money was healing something inside her. Lila thrived in school. She made friends, joined an art club, brought home drawings and stories and report cards covered in gold stars. She talked about what she wanted to be when she grew up. A teacher, a veterinarian, an astronaut. The world was open to her in ways it had never been before. But there were hard days too. Days when Evelyn couldn't get out of bed because the nightmares had been too vivid. Days when Lila asked about her father, and they had to navigate the careful lies the marshals had given them. He died when you were very young. We don't talk about it much. It's complicated. Days when Claire walked past men in suits and had to fight the urge to run. The trauma didn't just disappear because they had new names and a fresh start. It lived in their bones, in their reflexes, in the way they all still locked doors obsessively and kept emergency bags packed under their beds. 6 months into their new life, Claire came home to find Evelyn crying at the kitchen table. What happened? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Evelyn wiped her eyes. I was at work and this man came in, buying a book for his daughter. He was so normal, so happy. And I just kept thinking about Leon, about the wedding, about all the years I lost, and I started crying right there by the register and had to go hide in the bathroom. Claire sat down beside her, took her hand. My manager was nice about it, said everyone has hard days, but Claire, what if I can't do this? What if I can't just be normal? You don't have to be normal. You just have to keep showing up. Is that enough? It's all any of us can do. Evelyn's laugh was wet and bitter. You're better at this than I am, at moving forward. No, I'm not. I'm just better at pretending. Fake it till you make it? Something like that. They sat together until Lila came home from school, and then they made dinner together. All three of them crowded into the tiny kitchen, and it felt almost like healing. Almost. A year passed. Then 2. Lila turned 10, then 11. She grew taller, smarter, more confident. She joined the school debate team and discovered she was good at arguing. She brought home a permission slip for a field trip to an art museum, and Claire had to sit down because the simple normalcy of it was overwhelming. Margaret promoted Claire to assistant manager at the gallery. The pay still wasn't great, but it was enough. Combined with Evelyn's bookstore income, they could afford to move to a slightly bigger apartment, one where Lila could have her own room. They built a life, small and quiet, and nothing like what either of them had imagined when they were young. But it was theirs. Then one afternoon in Lila's 12th year, Claire came home to find 2 U.S. Marshals sitting in her living room. Her first thought was that they'd been found, that someone from the family had tracked them down, that everything was about to collapse. But the Marshals' expressions weren't urgent, just serious. Ms. Harper, one of them said, we need to talk about Vincent Moretti. Claire's stomach dropped. What about him? He's dying, pancreatic cancer. He has maybe 3 months left. He's asked to see you. Claire sat down slowly. Why? He wouldn't say, but the request went through official channels. If you choose to visit, we can arrange it. You'd be protected. No one would know your current identity. Claire looked at Evelyn, who'd gone pale. You don't have to go, Evelyn said. You don't owe him anything. I know. But she was already thinking about it, about Vincent helping her that first night, giving her the phone, about him offering them freedom multiple times, about him setting up a trust for Lila before the feds came. He'd been complicit in their captivity, but he'd also been the one to finally free them. "I'll think about it," Claire told the marshals. They left their contact information and departed. That night, Claire and Evelyn talked it through while Lila slept. "What could he possibly want to say to you?" Evelyn asked. "I don't know. Maybe nothing important. Maybe he's just tying up loose ends before he dies. Or maybe it's a trap. The marshals wouldn't have brought it to me if it wasn't safe." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "Do you want to see him?" Did she? Claire wasn't sure. Part of her wanted to let Vincent die without wasting another second of her life on him. But another part, the part that remembered the vault, the careful way Vincent had helped orchestrate their escape from the family. That part wanted answers. "I think I need to," Claire said finally. "Then I'm coming with you." "Evelyn, no arguments. If you're going back into that world even for an hour, I'm coming. We do this together." Claire nodded, grateful. They left Lila with a trusted neighbor and flew to the federal prison where Vincent was serving his sentence. The facility was gray and cold, exactly what Claire expected. They went through security, signed forms, were led to a private visiting room. Vincent was already there when they arrived. He looked terrible. The cancer had hollowed him out, leaving skin stretched over bones, his eyes sunken. He wore prison orange and handcuffs, a guard stationed by the door. "Claire, Evelyn." His voice was rough. "Thank you for coming." They sat across from him at the metal table. "What do you want?" Claire asked. Vincent smiled slightly. Direct as always. He coughed, winced. "I wanted to apologize, and to explain some things before I die." "We don't need your apology," Evelyn said coldly. "Maybe not, but I'm giving it anyway." Vincent looked at both of them. "I stood by and watched my family destroy people for years. I told myself I was different, better, because I didn't actively participate in the worst of it. But silence is complicity. Inaction is a choice. And I chose wrong, over and over." Claire said nothing. "When Leon took you, Claire, I should have stopped it immediately. When he forced you to marry him, Evelyn, I should have helped you escape. But I was a coward. I valued my position, my safety, my comfort over doing what was right." "Why are you telling us this now?" Claire asked. "Because I'm dying, and I want you to know that your records, the ones you made of the collection, they didn't just convict me. They helped return over 60 pieces to their rightful owners. Museums, families, institutions that had been searching for those works for decades. Your work did that." Claire's breath caught. She'd hoped the records would be used that way, but she'd never known for sure. "The trust I set up for Lila," Vincent continued. "It's still active. When she turns 18, she'll have access to $2 million. Clean money from legitimate investments I made before everything fell apart. The feds verified it. It's hers, no strings attached." "We don't want your money," Evelyn said. "It's not for you. It's for her, so she can choose her future without the weight of poverty or debt, so she can be free in ways we never were." Claire studied his face, looking for manipulation, for hidden motives, but all she saw was a dying man trying to make peace. "Is that everything?" she asked. "Almost." Vincent leaned forward slightly. "I need you to know that I tipped off the feds. I gave them the initial information that led to the raid." Evelyn gasped. "Why?" Claire asked. "Because I was tired. Tired of the life, the violence, the corruption. Tired of being part of a machine that destroyed everything it touched. And because you three deserved better." Vincent's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I couldn't undo what had been done, but I could burn it all down and give you a chance to escape the ashes." Claire sat back, processing. "You went to prison for 40 years to free us." "I went to prison because I deserved it. The fact that it freed you was the only good thing to come from any of this." They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Claire spoke. "I don't forgive you. I can't. What happened to us, what Leon did, what the family did, that's not something I can just forgive. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I understand why you did it. At the end," Claire's voice was steady, "and I hope you find whatever peace you're looking for before you die." Vincent nodded. "Thank you for coming, both of you. It means more than you know." The guard indicated their time was up. Claire and Evelyn stood to leave. At the door, Claire paused, looked back. Vincent? Those 60 pieces that got returned, do you have a list of them? The feds do. They can give it to you if you ask. Claire nodded and left. On the flight home, Evelyn asked, "Why did you want the list?" "Because I want to see the families who got their art back. I want to know the work I did mattered." "It mattered. You heard him. I want to see it for myself." Claire got the list from the marshals 2 weeks later. 63 items returned to rightful owners. She researched each one, found the stories behind them. A painting that had been stolen from a Jewish family during wartime now returned to the granddaughter. A sculpture that had been taken from a museum during a robbery, back in its proper gallery. A portrait that had been in someone's family for generations, finally home. Each story was a small piece of justice, and Claire had helped make it happen. It didn't erase the years of captivity, didn't undo the trauma, but it gave those years a meaning beyond just survival. Vincent died 6 weeks after their visit. Claire didn't go to the funeral. There wasn't one, really, just a quiet burial in a prison cemetery. But she thought about him sometimes, about the complexity of a person who could be both complicit in evil and instrumental in ending it. People weren't simple. They were capable of both terrible things and unexpected grace, sometimes in the same lifetime, sometimes in the same moment. Life continued. Lila turned 13, then 14. She grew into a thoughtful teenager, interested in social justice and art and poetry. She knew her family history was complicated. They'd told her edited versions as she got older, but she didn't let it define her. She was becoming her own person, separate from Leon's legacy, separate from the Moretti name she'd never known. One evening, when Lila was 15, she came to Claire with a question. "Aunt Claire, can I ask you something?" They were in the kitchen, Claire making dinner while Lila did homework at the table. "Of course. When you and Mom talk about the bad years, the ones before we moved here, you never give a lot of details. And I get it, you're protecting me. But I'm not a little kid anymore. I can handle the truth." Claire set down her knife, turned to face her. "What truth are you looking for?" "Who is my father? Really?" Claire's heart clenched. They'd known this day would come. "Let me get your mom. She should be part of this conversation." They sat together in the living room, Claire, Evelyn, and Lila, and told her. Not everything. Not the worst details. But enough. About Leon, about the forced marriage, about Claire being taken as leverage, about the years of captivity and the escape attempts, and Vincent's final act of mercy. Lila listened without interrupting, her expression growing more horrified as the story unfolded. When they finished, she was quiet for a long time. "So I'm the daughter of a criminal," she said finally. "You're the daughter of a woman who survived impossible circumstances," Claire corrected. "Your father's choices don't define you. But his blood is in me. His genes." "Biology isn't destiny," Evelyn said firmly. "I've watched you grow up, Lila. You're kind and thoughtful and strong. You fight for what's right. You care about people. None of that came from Leon. That's all you." "And me?" Lila looked at Claire. "Why did you stay? You weren't my mother. You could have left." Claire thought about all the possible answers, about duty, about loyalty, about love. "Because you needed me," she said simply, "and I needed you too. You gave me a reason to keep going when I didn't have one. You gave me purpose." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "I'm glad you stayed. So am I." They held each other while Evelyn cried quietly beside them, and it felt like finally laying down a burden they'd been carrying for years. Lila graduated high school at 17, a year early, with honors. She'd been accepted to 3 universities with full scholarships. The trust Vincent had set up was activated on her 18th birthday, and Lila stared at the bank statement for a full 5 minutes without speaking. $2 million, she whispered. "This is insane." "It's yours," Claire said, "to do whatever you want with." "What did Mom say about it?" "That the choice is yours." Lila was quiet for a long moment. "I want to use some of it to start a foundation for kids who've been affected by organized crime, help them get therapy, education, support. The things I had because I had you two, but other kids don't." Claire's throat tightened. "That's a beautiful idea. And I want to go to college and study art history. like you did. Lila looked at Claire. I want to help return stolen art to families like you did, but I want to do it the right way from the beginning. You don't have to follow my path. I'm not following your path. I'm making my own. But you showed me that art matters, that justice matters, that the work of making things right matters. So yeah, I want to do this. Claire pulled her into a hug. This girl, this young woman, who had been born into darkness but chose to walk toward light. Who could have let her father's legacy poison her, but instead used it as motivation to do better? I'm so proud of you, Claire whispered. I know. You tell me every day. I'll tell you every day for the rest of your life. The years kept passing. Lila went to college, then grad school. She interned at museums, worked with art recovery specialists, helped repatriate pieces to their countries of origin. She was good at it, better than good. Evelyn opened her own bookstore, a small, independent shop that specialized in used books and community events. It barely broke even, but it made her happy, and that was enough. Claire stayed at the gallery until Margaret retired and left it to her. She ran it for another 10 years, then sold it and started teaching art history at a community college. She loved watching students discover their passion for art the way she once had. They all built lives that weren't defined by what had happened to them, but weren't disconnected from it either. The trauma was part of their story, but it wasn't the whole story. On Lila's 30th birthday, they threw a party at Evelyn's bookstore. Friends, colleagues, Lila's partner, a kind lawyer named Sarah who worked in immigration law. The store was full of laughter and conversation and love. Claire stood to the side, watching Lila blow out her candles, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, that the pain would always be there, in small ways, in quiet moments, but peace with how things had turned out, with the choices they'd made, with the people they'd become. Evelyn came to stand beside her. They were both in their 50s now, gray threading through their hair, lines marking their faces. But they were still standing, still here. We did okay, Evelyn said quietly. Yeah, we did. I never thought we'd make it this far. Neither did I. Lila called them over to cut the cake. They joined the celebration, and for a moment Claire let herself imagine what Leon would think if he could see them now. See Evelyn strong and independent, see Claire with her career and her students, see Lila thriving and doing work that mattered. He'd probably be angry, disappointed, furious that they'd escaped his control so completely, and that thought made Claire smile. Years later, when Claire was 63 and contemplating retirement, Lila called with news. I'm getting married to Sarah. We want you and Mom to be co-maids of honor. Claire's eyes filled with tears. We'd be honored. And there's something else. We're starting the process to adopt. There's a little girl, 8 years old, who's been in the foster system since her parents were arrested for drug trafficking. She needs a stable home. Lila, I know what you're going to say. That I'm taking on someone else's trauma. That it'll be hard. That I can't save everyone. But Aunt Claire, someone saved me. You saved me, you and Mom. And now I want to do that for someone else. Claire thought about a scared college graduate arriving at a wedding, about a timid woman who thought she could blend into the background, about the long journey from victim to survivor to something more. You're going to be an amazing mother, she said. I learned from the best. The wedding was small and beautiful. Claire stood beside Evelyn as Lila and Sarah exchanged vows, and she thought about another wedding, years ago, that had been a trap and a nightmare. This one was joy and promise and hope, everything a wedding should be. The adopted daughter, Emma, came home 6 months later. She was quiet and watchful and reminded Claire so much of herself at that age. Lila was patient with her, gentle, present in all the ways Emma needed. Claire watched them together. Lila reading to Emma, teaching her to paint, showing her that the world could be safe, and felt the circle complete itself. Trauma could end. It didn't have to pass down through generations like an inheritance. It could stop with one person deciding to do better, to be better, to break the pattern. On Claire's 65th birthday, Evelyn threw a small party at her house. Just family, Lila, Sarah, Emma, a few close friends. They ate cake and told stories and laughed. At one point, Emma came over and climbed into Claire's lap, even though she was getting too big for it. Grandma Claire, she asked, Lila says you used to work with art. Will you teach me? Grandma Claire, The name still felt new, strange, wonderful. I'd love to, Claire said. Mom says you helped people find art that was stolen from them, that you made things right. I tried to. That's what I want to do when I grow up. Help make things right. Claire hugged her tight. Then I'll teach you everything I know. That night, after everyone had gone home, Claire sat on her small balcony looking at the city lights. She thought about the long, strange path that had brought her here. From that wedding in the mountains to this moment, decades later, surrounded by family she'd chosen and built and protected. She'd lost years of her life to fear and captivity. She'd been broken and rebuilt and broken again. She'd made choices, some brave, some desperate, some just trying to survive another day. But she'd also loved fiercely. She'd stayed when running would have been easier. She'd built meaning from ruins. She'd helped raise a child who became a woman who was now raising another child, passing down not trauma but resilience, not fear but courage. The shy girl who'd thought she could hide at a wedding had become someone who stood in the light and refused to disappear. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Claire closed her eyes and let herself feel it all. The grief for what she'd lost, the gratitude for what she'd found, the quiet pride in who she'd become. She'd survived. They'd all survived. And in surviving, they'd learned to live.